Hello and welcome to another edition of Belt Sander from Hell. We've done a little bit of pre-assembly, even though some of the hardware is going to get changed out. We've just got these kind of test fitted with some all thread to determine the lengths, and then we've done some sleeve work back here. And just by hand, we got pretty good belt tracking. We still don't have a motor hooked up, so we're just doing some tracking testing by hand to see how the belt tracks. And so far it's working pretty good. We made a few changes. Didn't like the way the spring looked, so we used an air cylinder. I had one on the shelf, and down here we just put a Schrader valve so we can put air to it. And then we just used a muffler on the other end to give it a vent, but don't allow it to pull in any debris or sanding grit and destroy the cylinder. And then just got a little Heim joint up here on top, and this gives us our just a little air cushion. It's like an air spring. So we didn't use the gas shock, and we didn't use the spring that they had originally talked about. So I'm going to make that hole there go away. I'll just end up plug welding it and grinding it flat on both sides just to dress it up a little bit. But so with my artistic license, that's what I was allowed to do there. So that's a change I made. That bolts up to that back plate, the pivot mount. And right now I think we got about 30 psi in that cylinder, but it's adjustable, and it's sat here all night, and it's still got nice tension to it. So, and we can play with the pressure too. That's something you can't do with a spring. You have to change the spring if you want to change the pressure. And this, we can just change the spring pressure just by giving it more or less air. So it like I said, those are just repurposed air cylinders. They were sitting around on the shelf. And in hindsight here, now that I'm looking at it, I may invert that air cylinder so that no grit can get down inside the cylinder, inside the rod connection here, or either that or create a little seal there, like a wiper or something out of maybe some UHMW, just to wipe that shaft and keep the grit and nasty stuff out of that cylinder to keep it living. And we did. I got this shaft keyed. It's a long key. It goes all the way into this sheave, and this sheave's only got one set screw. I'm not crazy about that. I think probably when on final assembly we'll red Loctite this onto here and get all this put together, so I've got a nice solid connection in there. But we left this extra bit out here. I talked before that he wanted a disc mount, so we left this out here for a disc mount. And if I do make a disc, I'll probably use a wedge mated connection, a bushing, very similar to what we used on the drive pulley here. You got the pulley and then the bushing in the center, and it's a 2-degree taper, split taper bushing. When you tighten these two bolts, it actually clamps everything down to the shaft. So I'm thinking we're going to use a wedge mated connection on that disc. The way those discs get worked from this, either side or maybe the top, you're always rocking the thing and always working the connection. On a rotating mass like that, you can really work it loose on the shaft. So I wouldn't trust a simple set screw connection for that disc. I think I'm going to trust a wedge mated connection a little better. Down here for the pivot, I used a shoulder bolt. That's a 1/4-20 shoulder bolt. So it's got a 5/16 shoulder and a 1/4-20 thread, and that makes a nice solid little pivot. And then using this screw to pinch it down, but we're going to be changing this out to a quick lock. So we are going to change that. The tool rest or the work rest or whatever you want to call this, I went ahead and put a 45 bevel on the back side so you can tilt the head like this and still get in tight to your work. That wasn't on the plans, but I went ahead and did it because that's the way every other belt sander I've seen has it, so, or disc sander even. So that's that. And so we've got good tension. The tracking works good. We grabbed a plastic knob, 5/16 coarse thread there that comes through and tilts that rocker. This is just some 1/2-inch ID DOM tubing, slipped over a piece of all thread to space out the bearing. And then we just got nuts on here now. These will end up being Nylox. We'll do these with Nylox, and we'll Loctite in our threaded studs into the rockers, and we'll red Loctite these into this plate and back piece. And same thing here. Just we just got little half nuts on there now, just for setup and testing and everything else. The tool rest, or the work rest, slides in and out on this slotted hole, and it's just bolted here. What also I found, it'd be nice to have a riser for this, so when you tilt this plate and mount back hard, it'd be nice to be able to elevate this and get in up in the center of the platen. This is a platen that's hasn't even been cut or machined or anything yet. You know, it's just cut to size. But it kind of fits back behind the belt here. And then these two threaded holes here and here, there's an angle bracket that goes in there that holds that plate. And we wanted to get our spacing correct and get the belt running pretty close to where it needs to run before we started messing with that. But anyways, we're going to get a quick lock here, and actually underneath the tool, or the work rest, we're going to get 2 quick locks here sticking out, very similar to what we have here for the entire assembly. So we're due for some more quick locks on this thing, and we still got to do the table. What I'm doing with the tabletop is we're going to cut a notch out of it and let the belts go straight down, and then undersling the motor underneath. And we're using link belts. They run very smooth, and they actually last a long time. But these were kicking around the shop, so that got donated too. So far I've donated a motor, link belts, and an air cylinder. We're actually calling that an air spring. But that thing's held for 24 hours. We were kind of wondering if it was going to hold air over the long term, and we didn't know how thermal expansion was going to fall into play. Cold morning, hot day, whether it's going to change a lot of air pressure and change the belt tension a lot. But it's a little chilly this morning. It's my idea of chilly. It's 50 degrees. So this is a Southern California boy's idea of chilly. And then, you know, it'll spike today, 76, 80, and we'll see if it goes up, you know, the pressure goes up to an unacceptable level. I'm sure it's going to raise and lower, but the question is if it stays within limits. So we're going to kind of experiment with that air spring concept. So anyways, and those of you that caught me calling this a grinder, not a grinder. Grinder. Not a grinder. All right, but that's where we're at with it. And I'll shoot a bit more for you guys in a bit. Talk to you. Okay, so we're back. And I've finished the bench for the belt sander. So I thought you might guys want to take a quick look at that. The top is some 10 gauge. I've already drilled the holes for the sander, and that groove is for the belt. The motor is underslung, so the belt comes up through the table. That round circle, I've actually got that set up for a quench bucket. These little plastic containers here. Available almost anywhere. That thing's just going to sit there, and then pull it, dump it, whatever. So they'll have a dedicated place for a quench bucket, and it's disposable. When it gets nasty, they can just throw it away and grab a new one. So yeah, that's I put a bottom shelf in it just to keep the legs straight. I actually made some little feet, some little cupped feet with I glued in some rubber pieces into the cups, and the bottoms of those have threaded plates so they can move it around and get it flat on whatever floor it happens to be sitting on. So, bottom shelf, top shelf, got a 1-inch lip all the way around here. The only thing I am considering is underneath there's I might put a little piece of 1-inch channel across here because that's where the motor's hanging to keep the center of the table from oil canning. So I am considering that, but I'm going to get the grinder mounted and get the motor mounted and see how it feels before I make that call. Okay, and here's our progress from an hour. Got the sanders mounted, not permanently, it's just short bolted, and I was just test fitting the drive, make sure our drive belt's going to miss everything, which it does. My slot's big enough. And those 4 bolts you see there are 2 mounting pedestals for underneath. And they're just kind of a pinch type block. And I still got to come up with a tensioner for in here. It'll probably just be a spring with a piece of Delrin because the motor, you got the weight of the motor anyways. So, but everything's all lined up, and it seems like it's going to run pretty good right there. But those little blocks are real easy to make. They're just a pinch type block, just 3/4 shaft, 3/4 hole, run a slitting saw through it, clearance tapped, and when you tighten that, it just pinches down on it. So that'll help with the belt tension, but I'm still going to put a spring on it anyways, just to keep it tight. But yeah, this allows me to move the motor side to side slightly for belt alignment. Alrighty, so that's that. And next is get the control group on it, get a VFD on it, and start working on a little wiring. Here are for, maybe a final, I don't know, I might shoot another video after I'm totally completed with it. There's still a plating to go in back behind this, and a little angle plate that has to go in there. But for the most part, everything's done. I still need to make a belt guard. I'll make that tomorrow. The air cylinder is working good with the fill valve and everything for the belt removal. And I got the frequency drive under there, and it runs pretty damn good. The belt tracking is real touchy. Just a little quarter turn on that thing will just spin that belt left or right. It works nice. And it's running at 60 hertz, so that's 42 or 3200 RPM motor. So that's bringing this project to a close. And we've got one happy knife maker. Needs a coat of paint and a couple little accessories, and this thing's a wrap. Okay, thanks for watching.